done.
I remembered myself. Okay, the recording has started, and I only forgot one sentence in. So we are in the process now of doing the coordination work. Um, we've now it goes back and forth. It's an iterative process. So we started thinking big picture about what the goals of and the function, the organs of the organism, and what we needed to do at a high level. And then we delegated that out to the guilds to think through a little bit, how to digest that information and think through what that means in terms of priorities and integration with the other guilds. And now we're coming back together and doing the work of the coordination circle, where we want to make sure that we are taking a final look, not, everything being iterative, but taking a look at it to make sure that we're balancing buckets, staying focused on priorities, et cetera, so that we can hand back to the, basically we have a clean handoff to the guilds, so the guilds know what their focus is, and they can start to take it from there. And we know that this is an iterative process, so the guilds will take a step, and then we'll kind of check back with the coordination circle, and that's all built into the process. So as a way of getting started, I just thought I would share the notes that we took as part of our collaborative framing of, how thinking through the process. I share this partly in the spirit of transparency, and also because we are all in this together. So if there are any questions or ideas, we're open to shaping it as we go. So basically, yeah, the reason that we're doing this is to really make sure that we're delegating out responsibility and influence to the guilds. And we just want to make sure that we're clear on that everyone, both sides, the whole organism and the guilds themselves get a sense of, where they should be putting their effort. This is all about how do we do the best with what we've got here and now? How do we use the resources that we have access to move forward as best we can? What's our best bet? And using that sociocracy model, the guilds are really the actors. And so like the locus of agency happens within the guilds. We want to empower them so that they can be innovative and take agency, but keep everything connected so that we minimize the conflict. But we also know that there's going to be conflict, there's going to be tensions. And so really what we're going to demonstrate here is one form of navigating via tensions. And this is, we host our navigation sessions online, which are really individual processing in a group. Like we each come in with our own tensions, and we each kind of work through and see what we can learn from each other. But there's no sense that we're trying to make a decision together. This is a little bit different because we're actually using that tension process as a way of making better decisions together. And so that's what we're going to really be sort of demonstrating today. And it follows the same form as our navigation sessions, the ones that we host online. So what we will do after we confirm that we're all on the same page about this is the good process, we'll go through the circle, and everyone will have a chance to say, based on the guild presentations earlier when we debriefed what we were talking about in the guild meetings, are there any tensions that you're noticing? And tension is a gap between how things are and how we want things to be. It can be, we can feel them as positive tensions. I'm hoping that this might happen. It can also be kind of a negative tension. I'm worried that there's going to be a potential conflict here, something like that. The idea is that we just get a chance to share our tensions. And then that's the first round. And then the second round, we weave them together and we prioritize. So in the second round, we're actually noting what we've heard, but we're also thinking, where do we want to put our effort for today? So of these tensions, is there one or two or a suite of them that feel like kind of the place to start, at least? the 20 that gets us 80. If we can figure this out, then, we're going to be ahead of the game. Once we identify that, we'll spend some time just exploring what is underneath that, what's fueling that tension. What are the competing drivers to hopefully get to a so what. And ultimately, what we're looking to produce are some, it's kind of a militaristic term, but basically marching orders for the guilds, right? It's do the guilds know what we're expecting of them and have a sense of what the next steps are? So that's basically what we have in mind. And I think I will stop the share here, and just so I can see people. And Ronnie and April, is there anything that you want to add to that in terms of context?
I don't think so.
All right, and to everyone else, is that clear, or are there any questions? Any questions? Cool. All righty. And I think it's the other thing that I want to put in context here is this is our annual planning, but this is the beginning of something. It's not the end of something. So we want to get as far along as we can, but we recognize this is all, it's all the process. So we know that it's the conversation itself is what moves us forward. And this is just setting us up for the next step. So there's no, I guess I want to diffuse any sense of pressure. We don't have to get to a certain point today. We can let the conversation take its form and trust that the circle will do its work. And I'm not sure who this person is. You might actually pause and hello and welcome.
Sorry, I see I'm not muted.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Do you want to, I think we've all been working together this morning, and actually, I guess we can just do a quick round of introductions to bring you into the loop. And I'm Ben Cottle, Lifeboat Academy here on Sedeas. And we can, I guess I was going to establish the circle anyhow, so this will be a great way of starting the circle. The circle as I see it is April, Sandra, Heather, Barbara, Ronnie, Rowan, Linda, Kia, and then back to me. And I will type that in the chat. And April, if you want to do a quick intro.
Hi, April Struthers. I'm coming from the Sunshine Coast of British Columbia today, and I've been working with Lifeboat stuff for, well, some years now. And over to Sandra.
Hi, my name's Sandra Christensen. Currently, I'm on Salt Spring Island doing a winter farm sit on Mount Maxwell. And last summer, I did, I guess a boot camp over there on the farm, and just seeing what comes next. Over to you, Heather.
Yeah, I'm Heather Pritchard, and I live in the Fraser Valley, retired organic farmer on a cooperative community farm. And I'm call myself the guiding elder. So I'm kind of guiding Foodlands Cooperative, of which the Lifeboat is a member, and we're on a parallel track to see how this can all work. And nice to meet you, Kia.
Nice to meet you as well.
Next.
I think it's me. Just from
Yes,
a quick
it is
note.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a note. Great. I got a nod. I mean, hi, I'm Barbara Jochen, and I live in the central Fraser Valley in BC, and I'm currently at the Spalding Valley Farm on Sedeas in in the Gulf Islands here, and I'm interested in the process. So I'm attending this 2024 planning charrette to see what I can learn. Welcome, Kia. And I believe I'm over to Ronnie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Gelman. I started as an intern at the Lifeboat Academy before it was called that, about a year and a half ago. And I ended up living as part of the farm and the team for over a year. And now I'm back home in Austin, Texas, unceded Coahuiltecan and Tonkawa territory. Yeah, welcome. Hello. Over to Roland.
My name is Roland, and I am also on CDS on the current what's the word I'm looking for the academy campus for the Lifeboat Academy, and have been the development of the idea for the last 10 years, before it was named the Lifeboat Academy. And yeah, that's me. So over to Linda.
Thanks. Linda Eleanor. I live in Dana Point, California. I've known Ben for some 10 years through the National Coalition of Dialogue and Deliberation. It's when I got very interested in climate change work and I dabbled in a lot of different arenas as a climate activist. And I would drop in from time to time to the the navigating tensions sessions, and I've always enjoyed them. So all of a sudden, this seems to be developing into something really interesting, and I'm just seeing how I can connect in. I'm very new to this whole thing. So welcome, Kia. I think it's you next.
Well, hi, I've just popped in late, but I just opened the email from Myra,
Oh,
how I got here. And I thought, oh, well, let's just see. So here I am. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'm here part of the year, and part of the year I'm in Glastonbury, UK.
Oh.
And in the UK, I'm helping care for a spring, the White Spring in Glastonbury, if you know it. And the objective is its long-term sustainability as a community resource.
mm.
And I've used the word resource advisedly, but at this point I can't language anything much more sophisticated because I'm still bumbling around and learning. But I think my longer term vision is that ultimately the spring herself is viewed as the sovereign and we are the stewards, and it's not a resource, it's a relational field of some kind that I can't put words to. And I'm really glad that you said what you said, Linda, because that was my perfect entry. I had a really rough year with my team last year. And I find it can be quite difficult to navigate various points of view and bring them together into a harmonic, because it really depends on whether everyone in the circle is committed to that vision. And if they're not, it could be pretty, tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always interested in meeting people who are working in that arena of navigating tensions and bringing diverse stakeholders into a common shared conversation and still being able to move forward. Being able to bring a sense to everybody that we're not just like trying to hurt each other or spin our wheels, or that we're really gaining some territory. I think that's complete for me.
Well, that's wonderful. And I feel like I think you are welcome here. I think this is you're among kindred spirits, and no apologies around the languaging issue. I think we're all facing that, where our language has become so loaded with a lot of baggage, and so it's really hard to find the words that match what we're aspiring to. And yeah, yes. So I put a link to the Miro board in the chat. So that is a good reference to a lot of the work that's gone into what we are doing right now. And we are going to be using a navigating via tensions, kind of a variation on that process. So you get to experience that. And just before the lunch break, we went over that we have 5 guilds that are kind of figuring out what their 2024 plans are. And so this is our coordination circle to bring together and to use the navigating tensions process to identify what we need to do to make sure that everyone's starting off in the right place. And so where we are right now is we are going to share our tensions that are with us around the different guilds. I think I'm going to ask that because it's a slightly larger group, if people hold to 1 or 2 tensions. If we need to, when we get to the end, we can maybe loop back and if anyone feels like something hasn't been voiced. But I suspect the tensions will probably get, listed once around in the circle. But with that in mind, I'm going to just pass over to April. What are some of the, and I wasn't planning on scribing or recording, but I wasn't planning on scribing the tensions, just letting the oral part of the circle do its work. And when we get to something that feels like a landing, then we'll scribe that. But in the interim, we'll just let the conversation take its own form. And so with that, over to you, April. Are there any tensions that you want to put on the list? Do you have a question, Kia?
Well, I just want to say, I'm really sorry because this wasn't a result of planning. It was the result of impulse for me to show up. And I have a 5-minute commitment exactly at 3:33 my time. So I'm just going to disappear. You're going to miss me just a minute before that, and then I will be right back.
Awesome. Thanks for letting us know. Over to you, April.
Can you pose the question to me again, please, Ben?
Yes. So before lunch, we went over the 5 guilds and we talked about where each guild sees themselves heading. And so the question is, are there any tensions that we need to navigate in terms of at the coordination level? So it could be areas where there might be confusion between guilds. It could be kind of global questions about whatever it might be. So, and the other thing too with the navigating tensions is there's a somatic component to this. It's kind of what has your attention right now. What's on your mind, what's sort of weighing on you, and that go with that. So over to you, April.
Thank you. In thinking about what we talked about in the morning and in thinking about my immersion in some of the pre-planning around the guilds, I'm finding that I'm having trouble adapting rapidly enough to hold it all in my head, and need to have some more processing time, but some also processing individually also with my colleagues. And I'm hoping the tension is between the rapid adaptation and learning that I'm trying to do and feeling competent in moving forward, particularly in the guild work, in which I've not really been formally engaged before. I've been operating more at a different level with a different set of lenses. So my tension between rapid learning and feeling competent. And am I passing over to Sandra now?
Thanks, April. I guess in a similar sense, participating in a guild is new to me. And I don't know if I feel it as a tension or just this sort of open, empty space that, just waiting to see what's going to be happening in there and not sure. So the tension is, I guess, is in the not knowing what comes next, but I don't feel any pressure because I think it's just going to come out in the dialogue and getting to know the other people in that guild. And I'm excited to see what will happen. Sorry, over to Heather, right?
Yes, I was expressing at lunch a tension that I was feeling, and that had to do with the kind of overwhelm of information and possibilities and complexity. And I realized that what I was holding it because I wasn't coming to it as Heather, with curiosity and exploring it. I was coming to it with all the rest of my network behind me, wanting to know and understand what it is that I was bringing back from Lifeboat, and feeling totally incompetent to be able to actually explain kind of what was going on, even though I have been actually quite involved in it, and I do think I have an understanding. I absolutely I'm not a nerd when it comes to we were talking about that, comes to the visual, and the learning of a new program is like scary to me in a way. I'm assured that it's easy to learn, but that even makes it worse because well, everybody thinks it's easy, and I don't. I think it's hard. I don't have a tension around the gills. I think that's very real and practical, and it's sociocratic, and the gills are basically the circles, and they're the groups of people that do the work. And I guess the only tension I have around that is a similar one that I experience in Foodlands, is we have to populate those gills. The strong components of all those guilds are the same group of people, and let's just look for people who will participate in those guilds and also step up and take some leadership in them. And the next person is,
Me,
who's it?
Barbara.
It's you, Barbara.
It
You're
is
up.
too, yeah, and I'm up and I'm on. And I just want to let you know that I'm keeping my video off because I'm experiencing a little bit of internet instability, and it seems to be modulating that a little bit. I'm here, I'm going to keep my video up. I don't have any, I don't have contact or information about any tensions related to the guilds at this moment. What April, Sandra, and Heather said is true for me in terms of I don't have the Barbara version of it, is that I don't have it all in my muscles, in my mind, in me. I don't it's not in me. So I'm at sort of the coming into it stage. So there's probably a lot that hasn't happened yet in here in the Barbara zone. And at this moment, I don't have any tensions. And I am passing to Ronnie.
I think the one I'm sensing most right now is there's the desire to want, each guild to have a bunch of people and populating the guilds and growing the guilds and spreading out all the work. And there's also the reality of how this organization has been growing over time, which is very relational and very emergent. So I feel like, yeah, I want lots of people to be involved. And at the same time, I'm like, most of the people, like the people who are in this room, they've come to this room through relationship and through growing connection over time. And that, people have moved in and out of the realm of Lifeboat and have contributed different things. So just remembering that there is that organicness to the process. So how do we also hold the intention of getting more people involved? People who would really benefit and have a lot to contribute. So over to Roland.
I'm so glad that people are talking about there being too much to fit in their head and they don't have the whole picture, because I've been involved with this for about 10 years plus, and me too. And that's actually one of the uh, the whole idea is that we don't each have to hold the whole thing in our heads. That it's part of how I understand working collaboratively, that we can lean on each other for where our strengths are, so that our weaknesses are unimportant. So yeah, I think my expectations around knowing everything are now really, really low because I've beaten myself up enough over the years for not being able to hold everything in my head that I've come to the point of acceptance. So that's the one thing. I get another one. The other one is going over. So each of the guilds have met individually and have made decisions about what they're going to do. And we've all recognized that there's overlap between the guilds. So how do we talk about that? And at what point do we talk about that? And what are the pathways to be able to have those conversations before we decide this is what the guild is going to do and this is what the guild is going to be about? How do we have a conversation where there is actually agreement about what that actually is? So I pass to Linda.
Yeah, I think some of us are saying many of the same things. The way my brain works is I have kind of a strategic way of thinking through things, and I don't yet understand. I mean, I understand the general direction of where we're going, but the pieces haven't in my brain connected yet fully. And I'm curious how we do volunteer for something to actually do, but it has to, in my mind, it has to be part of a, overall plan, because we can't do it all at once, right? So there has to be some way we prioritize what we want to get done. And I know you've done some work on that already. So because I've not been part of the earlier planning process, I do feel a little out of it. But I'm also, I appreciate this is an emergent process, and I really appreciate also that it's relationally, focused. So, I figure it'll all work out somehow. So I believe it goes over to you, Kia. You're there.
She stepped away.
Yeah, she just stepped away for a second. So yeah, and I can give a space to Kia when she gets back. And well, and I think all of the things that I have on my list are things that have been mentioned already. So I feel that's very kind of confirming. And I do agree with Roland too, is I'm coming to be more comfortable with the fact that I don't hold all of it. And having that framework, there's the both and, it's sort of having this scaffolding, or at least this is how I content myself with it, is it's having a sense of sort of the scaffolding and knowing that the pieces will kind of fill themselves in. And a lot of it is, and it's the both and about, what we're doing here is stepping back and trying to take the long view. And then we get into it, and then it is a question of what comes next, where do we start? And that actually can be really practical, like that's where it's, and I'm hearing actually, like, I think in the tensions that people are identifying, there are a couple next steps, like for each of the guilds, how do we onboard new people into what's the basics you need to know? What's the story so far? What are you getting into? And a couple priorities. So, what are 1 or 2 or 3 things that we want to work on now? And aside from some of that logistic stuff about like how often do we want to meet, and but it really is, it's having that conversation where I feel like we all have a good enough sense of where we're coming from, that we can start to go into the, once everyone feels comfortable with like, okay, now I know the backstory enough that I can, participate. Yeah, and I think that communicating one of the tensions in this is the ongoing, how do you communicate an emergent, amorphous, quickly changing thing in a way that makes it invitational for people to get involved and not just go, oh my God, this is just too much. And so, and I think I think that we can figure that out, because once it gets to, well, actually, I think even the last round when we were talking about the outreach, it's leaning into the relationship, finding out what people are, rather than trying to explain the whole thing. It's sort of saying, well, what are you interested in? What kinds of things are what aspect of this are you most interested in? Oh, you should go check out the such and such guild. And then for each of those guilds to have here's how in half an hour I can let you know what you need to know about where we are. Here's our current template. Here are 1 or 2 action items that we're taking on, a couple of our chores, our ongoing responsibilities. Is any of that interesting to you? So anyhow, I feel like I'm kind of, I feel like my tensions, I don't feel like I need to add any of the tensions, because I feel like we're all, this is confirming to me that we're all kind of thinking in the same line. And so, starting it back around, usually the second round of the navigating via tensions is, what are you noticing? And I think we're already noticing very similar things. So I'm going to give the direction to move it towards, so what's underlying this, those tensions? Like, are there a couple key things, key drivers? I'm trying to think of, I wish Kira were back. This is where the languaging is, really kind of challenging. But, and actually, let me take a breath. The 2 next rounds are, what are you noticing? And what are the drivers underneath it? And I think we can combine those in this round, and we can see once we get around if that makes sense. And in the spirit of inoculation and the circle process, oftentimes it will start clunky as we're kind of feeling our way into it. And that's just how it goes. But then eventually we kind of find our rhythm, and something starts to emerge, some clarity starts to emerge. So welcome back, Kia. Do you have anything that you want to add in terms of tensions? Or are you just getting up to speed?
I'm mostly getting up to speed. I just wanted to say that I heard Linda's comments, and I do find that for me as well, the prioritization is often the most challenging tension. Is like, which priorities really gives us the most access to good use of resources, both humans and practical, and so that's my contribution.
Awesome. Yeah, one of our mottos is, what's the 20 that gets you 80 in terms of prioritizing. And I find that time limiting things also makes that much easier. What can we do in the next week or two? Ultimately, that moves us in that direction. So great. So with no further ado, over to you, April. What are you noticing, and or what are the drivers that you think are influencing all this?
Well, I'm noticing what I would call an appropriate sense of confusion. I've sometimes been a therapist in my life, and I feel if I don't make people more confused by the end of the session than they started, then I haven't done my job. And in some ways, that's what's happening with this process. The good thing is that we can all be confused together slightly. And I'm not actually confused, but what I am is trying to solidify my big picture map in my head. So a mental model of this. And I'm not even concerned with details. I'm not the detail person. I'm the big picture girl. So I can abdicate details to somebody else, but I have to find people in my guild that are willing to do the detail part then. And I'm looking forward to talking to the other folks in my guild. That's what I'm finding, is what this is moving into is the practical part about when do we talk, what do we talk about, how do we use it um, to know how and when to communicate and go from there. I'm ready to jump into that, I think, and to have a look. We've already started to identify priorities in the guilds, and there's all kinds of fun ways to prioritize your priorities. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. On to Sandra.
Thanks. I'm sure that I have a certain level of confusion going on within me too, but also just sort of trying to just be present. But like April, it's like, okay, I'm ready. Let's get together. When do we get together as a guild? I want to have conversations and come up with, okay, what should we do? And I also am conscious of my limited time because I'm a kind of person who takes on a lot of projects, and I have a lot of tentacles already as a teacher, a farm sitter, community organizing, supporting my daughter's herbal apothecary, and trying to finish writing my dissertation. So this is like, I think they're all connected. And I'm also trying to work out where am I going to live in the summer, and I don't really know. And I would like where I live to really determine my capacity for what I can do and give to this project on others. But I know that what's happening at Lifeboat Academy is definitely how I want to be functioning. I just got to sort of waiting for it to all pull together and see what role I can play, what I have to offer in relation to others and the needs of the land and community around me. So back to Heather, but I don't see her. So
Yes, I'm here. I turned my video off as Barbara. I'm experiencing a lot of interference and I see that Ben is as well, and maybe Roland. So it maybe has something to do with we're all in the same house, only in different rooms. So I'm hoping people can hear me. Yeah, okay. So what is it? Give me the question again. I distracted myself.
It's what are you noticing in the tensions and what's underneath it? Like what ultimately we're moving towards what's the so what? What do we do with this information? How do we move
Okay,
it
so
forward?
what I am noticing, as I am still a farmer, is that on our farm, we are pretty well gearing up for a new season. And here we are talking structure and all kinds of things. And kind of what I'm noticing is that very, very soon, if not immediately, there needs to be a plan on what happens on the land. And we were having a discussion today at lunch, and my heart and my excitement and my imagination and my experience goes much more towards that than it does to the finances. So that what I'm noticing in myself is that I want to see there to be not a shift necessarily, but an acknowledgement, a recognition, to you people who are on the land, that you need to be supported. And I don't mean that's overwhelming. You just need to start with what is the next thing that you need to be doing, and we need to support you to do that. And I think Barbara's after me.
It's true, Heather. I am right here. And I hope you can hear me because I'm also seeing lots of frozen, interesting faces, what we get frozen as in the moment. Echoing Heather, you basically said what I was going to say. I'm noticing some of the guilds have similar drivers, which is, okay, driver, which is time. TikTok, and definitely the Land Guild is one of those with what Heather just said. And having at least engaging in that process pretty quickly to start mapping out at least the first parts of a planting plan, because it's those nettles are up, and also April said something which I just slipped away from me, and then the other, but it'll probably come back. And the other thing is that the other time sensitive one-ish, to my read of it anyway, is the finance and legal, that there are some, I'm just putting, you can't see me, but I'm putting little quotation marks around urgency. There's some urgency around also in the time related driver for financial and legal to be paying attention to soon, ASAP-ish. And I didn't remember the April piece, and I'm going to pass it to Ronnie. Thank you.
This is all really great. Yeah, I'm thinking about the seasonal plan and sort of what are each of the guilds doing, and then this, and zooming out from there, what is sort of the story what's the story of the plan for the season? So what's the high level? This is where we're at. This is what we're working on as a whole, as an organism. And then breaking that down smaller and smaller. Each of the guilds are holding these different pieces. And so part of this circle is an example of circles moving forward of how, and it'll be more specific as we each get into our seasonal plan. We'll be bringing up tensions, we'll be bringing up questions. And what this has been making me think about too is the nature of an emergent process or an emergent thing is we have to be in relationship with it for it to work. We have to participate. And these, like, weekly, whether that looks like weekly planning meeting or weekly coordination circle, everyone who participates and comes back again to this space and to these ideas, that's how we build the momentum and the understanding. We absorb things better. So I wanted to also name that as, all of the information that is a lot and can be overwhelming, but then there's also, you build your relationship with it over time. And so we need the plan, and then the plan's nested in the plan. And we also need the process to hold it and to hold us as we navigate the plan. So it does seem we're very much moving in the right direction, and we're all seem like we're saying the same sorts of things. And I think we're doing a really good job of acknowledging the importance of the process. Oh, and the other thing, one of our sayings is building the lifeboat is the lifeboat. So it's not just work towards some thing and then you arrive there, but it's like, this is what's holding us. This is the lifeboat itself. And it will continue to morph and change over time. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there too. Over to Roland.
I was going to say frequent reminders as a way of learning, but you know what I'm actually noticing, and I think I'm kind of extrapolating from what Ronnie was saying, but I'm bringing it into the now, because what I'm observing is a lot of people who were saying, I'm overwhelmed, there's too much information, I don't know how I fit, who are in this round are actually saying, this is what I think should be the next thing, this is my understanding, this is where I think we should go. And I was curious, like pausing and actually trying to feel what that's like, feel what it's like to when for the first round of I don't know where I fit in, or I don't know how to fit it in my head, and then what does it feel like now that you're actually making suggestions. Like, I'm really curious about what is the experience, what can learn from it. And I think that where I'm kind of repeating what Ronnie is saying, it's that this is the experience of being part of it. This is the experience of it being emergent. What does it feel like? Over to Linda.
Very interesting. I guess what I'm noticing is that, at least I'm inside me, I'm noticing like is talking about tensions right now even helping? I mean, the way it is, because we're, we're all exploring the here and now, but a part of me, I guess the part that wants to get something accomplished, says, well, why aren't we actually moving into coordination? And then maybe we do the, we do the tensions, like, what did we just do and how did it go? And then deal with tensions. And so I just raise it because I think inside me, I really thought right now we were going to be kind of talking about how we identify, the who and the what and the when and all of that. And so it seems like what you said, Ronnie, is really good. I mean, that's exactly what I want to be doing. I want to be looking at the big picture and then seeing how we break that down. And so, and then we establish those priorities of what needs to be done. And then what's really going to make it happen is we're all going to say, gee, I really feel connected and I resonate with blah, 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 blah. And I'm not even sure, for me, it's going to necessarily be in the guild that I first showed up for. I mean, because I could see that I liked some of what I found in some of the other guilds. So I'm ready to jump in, is where I am. And I'm just noticing that's my driver. And I'm wondering if other people are also feeling that. To you, Kia.
I'm just going to pass the baton right on because I'm still in observer mode. But I do want to say that really there's a beautiful resonance in the group and a really rich conversation. So I feel privileged.
Well, and I feel like this is one of those areas where so the process is and the navigating the tensions is the coordination, because that's what what we need to coordinate is, where might there be some potential conflict or tension between the work of the different guilds. And I think, highlighting Roland's the magic of the circle and the magic of the process is we basically have come and identified, I think, a few action items for each of the guilds. We've come up with that together. And so now, and that was the whole point of this coordination circle is, and for example, it could have gone very differently. Last year, our whole charrette went in a very different direction because there was we kind of skipped 2 steps forward, and we needed to come back a step from where we were for the people who were in the room, and that became clear with the kind of questions and tensions that were coming up. And so, in a sense, we've confirmed that the tensions that we're talking about are fairly actionable, and so I think that we're pretty much, because the next round is the so what round, right? Like, we've made it all the way around. We've addressed our tensions. We've looked at what's really going on under the surface, and I feel like the so what has actually kind of bubbled up. And in fact, I'm going to switch over to the Miro board and just to capture this round where it's the so what. What are the, and again, we are operating at this point. It's challenging that, we're mixing. It's one of the things we talked about with the guilds, and you just referred to it, Linda, that it's not like there's one group of people in one guild and another group of people in another guild. We all have different, interests and levels of interest in the different guilds. And we might be really active in one guild and kind of dabble in another, or, dabble in a couple, or, so, um, there's that, that image of like taking on and putting on and taking off hats. So at any given point, we're going to take on and put on and take off different hats. And right now we're trying to think for the whole, right, rather than the guild. But we're doing that just long enough that we can like now go run. Now we can hand it off to the guilds with by the way, and this is what I think of this round, the so what from this navigating tensions. I've already heard a couple things like each guild should probably think about one or two seasonal priorities, should probably think about how do we integrate new people so that they feel up to speed, etc. And so as we capture that, and then we can then and Sunday morning, tomorrow morning is time for each of the guilds to do that next step. And if we have time, today, we can also jump into that. So we can use the time as effectively as possible. So I'm going to share screen to the Miro board, and I'm going to pass it over to April. And what I'm thinking of this as sort of directions to the guilds for their first meeting, their next meeting. It's basically answering the question, so what of all we've talked about, what's the takeaway? And I'm going to propose, we find that it works best if people share one item at a time, and we can go around multiple times if we need to, but just to allow people to, because otherwise the one person can list all the good things and steal all of it and no one else has a chance to add. So April, over to you. What is a takeaway, a so what in terms of directions to the guilds?
Well, darn, I'm foiled. I was going to take the power pole position here and put everything down, but I'll restrain myself. One of the first things I believe guilds can do is take a look again at what's on the Miro boards in terms of the content that came out of the meetings, which includes action plans, and some guilds have prioritized already. So there's some footprints there that we can take a look at. And on to Sandra.
I guess I'm going to pick up what I heard Ronnie mention is about building relationships within the guild by meeting regularly and allowing our actions to emerge organically. And I just want to say I'll post in my chats that I have to leave and I'll be back tomorrow morning. But unfortunately, bad timing. But I had bumped a meeting so I could be here for the first hour. So great energy, and see you all later.
I'm not sure who we pass over to then. You're Heather.
Oh, is it me?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm just going to say this may not even be on topic, but one of the things that I think I'd like to look at, I don't have at my fingertips, is there's 5 guilds. There's a lot of overlap in terms of how many the same people on those guilds. What we were encouraged to do in Foodlands was to have less circles and to make sure that there was 3 to 8, I guess, people in each circle. So I'm not suggesting we make the change, but it might be that a couple of the circles might come together. And what we were encouraged is within the circle is that there might be a subcircle or a group of people that take on just a particular function or task or whatever, so that we're not spreading particularly you and Roland, too thin on it. So that's just a suggestion to take a look at that with that lens.
I'm just gonna, I'll jump in just
And,
because there's a kind of a
And
point
then
of
I guess
fact here.
city,
Just because we have at least 5 people in each guild that have expressed interest.
oh, good.
We just haven't been able to coordinate everyone being here at the same time. So we have between 5 and 10 people who've expressed interest in each of the guilds. And we also have a fairly deep database of people who are interested and who we can invite into the work of the guilds. I think there's especially when the guilds start to think about actions, priority actions. I think that's part of why we did the asset mapping and part of why we have the CRM, the customer relationship management. That database, we have something, several hundred people who have expressed interest in what we're doing. And a lot of them are interested in, like, basically, let me know how I can help. And so I think that this is a good point, Heather. And I feel like we've kind of got it in the sweet spot with the 5 guilds. We had more earlier,
Okay.
and we've actually reduced them to 5 with that idea of being able to have kind of a critical mass to spread the work around. So
That's really excellent, because
yeah.
you also want anybody expressing interest to have a place that they can land, and that's just as important.
Yeah.
To build with. And the other is that when you say building relationships within the guilds, one of the things we found out we decided was that when there was 2 circles that were kind of on the same topic and overlapping, is that we scheduled a meeting between them. So, and you probably in Molandwind, and I don't know, Ronnie, how involved you are, but you'll probably know that I'm having this same discussion and people are having the same questions, and there seems to be an overlap. Let's schedule a meeting between these 2 guilds. So we found that useful. Yeah. And I'm just looking forward to what the action is in the guild that I'm in, so. And we could probably use more people who are interested in finance. I guess I'm kind of thinking of that. I think the other guilds may be easier to populate. It's just my guess.
Okay, I think it's me.
And next, yeah.
Yeah, you're done,
It's
Heather.
Barbara.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun.
No, you didn't.
Well, kind of,
Good.
sort of. I'm noticing I have a fairly sharp focus on one guild, which is the Land Farm, etc. guild. And I've got a baseball cap on, and it's got Roland's logo, do shit. And I just want to like, I'm going to make an assumption. Okay, there's a whole bunch of pre things here. I'm making an assumption that tomorrow at the guild meeting that we will do the first thing. So I'm kind of hacking the system a little bit by saying 2 things. The first one is probably going to happen tomorrow, which is sort of make a master plan that includes top of list when we meet first, which would be next. And then the real thing that I want to say is to make that master plan as a first step, which has to happen because I can't really imagine making a planting plan without already having a pretty good sense of where things are going to get planted. So having that kind of macro land use plan agreed upon, consented to, as a first for that one, for guild number 4. And you think I'd know by now, Ronnie.
I would like for us to plan the next coordination circle in addition to the guilds planning their meetings, because the coordination circle in part holds all the guilds accountable to completing our plans. And it creates a nice little deadline for things to come into form. And kind of also this speaks to what Heather was saying about when there's overlap between the guilds. If we're having a regular coordination circle, which we talked about our weekly planning meeting actually kind of morphing into a weekly or a bi-weekly coordination circle, but that means all the guilds are represented. Any conflicts or tensions or questions are addressed, often and ideally before it even becomes an issue. So if we also have that in place, that means the overarching lifeboat plan is being created by everyone, and we're all kind of on the same page with each other. Over to Roland.
I'm remembering a lot of comments about uncertainty or just learning, and it made me think of, we've probably got that written down somewhere, and we don't have, do we have a guild that is caring for archive and documentation? Because it would be, I think it would be useful to have all of that organized, and I think it would help to make things more transparent, as well as easier to keep track of things as they emerge. Emergent apparently is one of the buzzwords. So as things are emerging, that we're able to make whatever adjustments consistently. So yeah, I like the idea of moving on to doing, and I think that could be a really useful piece to work out, and I'm not quite sure how to work that out. So over to Linda.
I think the only thing that I'm wondering about right now is I know we're going to be meeting in the guilds tomorrow. So how do we want to work with the fact that we can't all be in all the guilds, or that we can't be in more than one? So I'd like to just bring that up, as I guess it's my tension still, but it's something that is a so what. So how do we deal with that? I mean, I'm willing to be patient and wait for kind of getting the whole plan in my brain. But even if I do that, once I do that, I'm still going to want to know, like, how if I see certain things I would like to connect into in some of the guilds, not just one, then how do I do that? How does that happen?
Mhm.
And so I will pass to Kia.
It's so fun to just automatically be part of a circle. And I don't have enough information around the process to really make a practical contribution. I do want to say that the whole issue of communication is an overarching one. For me too, is like everything from how do we identify the relevant information, how do we organize it and archive it, how do we share it, how do we meet with each other, how do we distill it, and it's complex because language is complex. So I just really want to acknowledge the undertaking that you're all in, and how really beautifully I think it's going. I'm complete.
That's great. And I think that this is, we already have some things in place. Like Ronnie was talking about the coordination circle. One of the tools from Sociocracy is called double linking. And
Yeah, I was gonna say.
we have double linking automatically. You can do it formally, but we have the fact that there are people who are interested in more than one guild. means that they are kind of an emissary for both, and they can, in a human form, they can make sure information shows up. But it is also, and I will say that from a conceptual level, each guild is responsible for maintaining its own records and figuring out how it wants to organize things. And the technical way, the driver statement works as the master agreement for the guild and also the directory to all of the resources. So we're using Google Docs, and that means anything that you think is relevant reference information, you can link on at the bottom of the document. And as we, kind of flesh out what are the responsibilities and what are the badges that each guild is going to have for themselves, what are the skills and the chores, that also gets documented through the driver statement. So that means that the driver statement is the one-stop shop for where to find the information. And then the guild's responsible for making sure that stays up to date. And then that allows some flexibility because, you layer on language is tricky, and then technology is tricky because different people have different relationships with different kinds of technology. And that's why we leave that actually at the discretion of the guild. How does the guild want to organize its information that works best for it? And we have some tools available, like at the Lifeboat level, we've been using Slack, which works really well. We call Slack our walkie-talkie, and Slack has different channels. So we could have a Guild 1 channel, a Guild 2 channel, a Guild 3 channel, and you only have to monitor the ones you can only, you can sign up for, follow some channels and ignore other channels, and things can get cross-posted. So there's some technology in here too, but really the key thing is that's one of the conversations for the guild to have. How do we want to stay in touch with ourselves? And, how often do we want to meet? That's one of the, for the guild to kind of work out. And we can offer a template that sort of, here's a template that generally works for us right now. And then you can refine it as needed, So we can hand over the guild driver statement to each of the guilds, say, this is how we have you set up. This is where we see you could add this information. And if you want to change it, it's a document and you can just add a section. And as long as we know this is where we go for what we need to know for that guild, that's the whole one-stop shop thing. And yeah, and I think that also the thing that was I would like to put on the list is getting the guild to tell its story. Storytelling happens in the telling. It's not about, this is my take on it. It's not about writing the mission and vision statement and then thinking that's going to do the work for you. It's actually, I can't remember who said, it's like somebody earlier mentioned, it might have been Linda. It's like, here's the big story about the lifeboat. Here's the story about the guild. This is what we're doing right now. It's sort of like, and the more you tell that story, the easier it is to tell the story. And it's relational because you're going to tell the story slightly differently depending on who you talk to, but you kind of know the story points. It's like, if we were going to tell the story of Little Red Riding Hood, we wouldn't use the same description, but we'd still have a wolf and a grandma, and and the moral of the story would be the same. So yeah, I think I'm going to add to the list for each of the guilds to sort of start telling its story. It's almost like practicing your elevator pitch. So back around to April for anything to continue if there's more things to add to the list.
Well, I've just been thinking about possible pinch points across all the guilds, and I think one of them is the crossover / overlap slice of the guild. And I often think in Venn diagrams too. So I'm, looking at the part that belongs to both. one guild and another guild, and the part that belongs to the coordinating circle, actually, too. And I think that there needs to be a discussion not only in each guild, but back and forth with the coordinating circle about, does this seem accurate to you? And does this, is there anything else we need to know that the coordinating circle knows that we can take back to apply to that? Because we know in any organism that boundary conflicts and stress around boundaries is almost universal. So if we can identify boundaries and keep them permeable, I think that's useful. And over to, oh, Sandra has left, so over to Heather.
I thought that I had gone, so I've obviously, what are we?
It's another kick at the can. It's you can pass if you don't have anything to add, but just going around to make sure that if there's anything else to add to the list.
I don't think so. I think I can pass. Yeah.
I can reframe everything that everybody said, and I will save us that and just say yes and pass to Ronnie.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add either. Over to Roland.
I am satisfied. Over to Linda.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't have anything more to add myself. So Kia, is she still
I'm
here?
right with you. I'm going to pass too.
Well, I'm the only thing, I'm adding some little details here. So let's just go over the list and see. So we have one of the responsibilities for the guilds when they meet is looking at basically the pre-existing materials, the Miro board, the goals, the driver statement, and pre-existing materials, just so everyone's up to speed on where things are already. Maybe not a detailed knowledge, but just like that list of here are the resources and what they relate to. And then we have some internal relationship building. Partly that's about establishing when the regular meetings are going to happen, how often, what works for people. And then thinking about being open to where we discover those areas of overlap, that's always an option for guilds to meet together if there's something that we want to talk about. And the other thing in relationship building, I was thinking about making a space to understand people's personal desires, expectations around, different levels of engagement. We've talked about helpers, apprentices, peers, and mentors. So, do you see yourself as a helper? I might show up and do a task, or a peer. I'm really interested in this. I want to make sure this happens, etc. So, for everyone just to understand the expectations. Well, and I guess that covers the how often do we meet. And then it sounds like in that first meeting, it's really one of the also tasks early on is to have that master plan. So we have a sense of, overall, this is what we're doing, and then how does that translate into actual action items? We need to figure out when the coordination circle happens. And Ronnie is right that that's really meant to be the ongoing, what you were talking about, April, in terms of the Venn diagram and the overlapping areas. That's the whole point of the coordination circle, to be able to handle those questions and have that back and forth. Right. And then I think this kind of is on the list, but probably is not the highest priority, but starting to archive the materials, making sure that they're available. Sorry, I'm having a mouse issue, learning which button to push for Miro. How Oh, and then this one I think is also a really interesting conversation to have. Technically for tomorrow, we're going to schedule a different time for each guild. So, from 10 o'clock, 10:30 to 10:45, it's Guild 1. From 10:45 to 11, it's Guild 2. So you can attend in those moments when you're interested. And there is also the question of not everyone is available all the time for the meetings, and how do we keep each other in the loop in what's going on? So having a conversation in the guild about what do we want to post? Where do we want to post it to keep people up to speed on what we're doing, and provide those opportunities. So that's an important conversation. And then telling the story, learning, like starting to actually, what is our high level mental model, the one sentence version about the Lifeboat Academy, and the one sentence version about how the guild fits into that, and the one sentence version about so our priorities right now are. So learning to do that, or rehearsing that. And then this will be kind of, I'm assuming this will be an ongoing conversation, but starting that conversation about areas of overlap and how do we handle sort of the trade-offs that are going to happen between guilds. That I think will become much more clear when there are specific things that we're working on, because in the abstract it's almost impossible to figure that out. But as soon as we have a list of, okay, so this week I'm working on this and this, oh, that probably means I should talk to finance or whatever. So that's what we've come up with in terms of sort of marching orders for the first meetings of the guilds. And I just want to, how does that land? Right now I'm going to give a break to the circle. And does anyone have any questions, observations, or does this look like a good summary of what we've just created? All right, I don't see any questions. So then basically this is kind of this is our ask of each of the guilds when you meet. These are the kinds of questions that we want you to be thinking about. I think we can leave it up to the guilds to prioritize. There's a couple of these that are sort of obvious first questions, I think, in my mind at least. And with that, we've done our coordination, and with 10 minutes to spare. And our goal in doing it was simultaneously to make sure that we were delegating the authority off to the guilds with a clear expectation of what we're expecting from them, and also to demonstrate how the navigating via tensions can work to make some of these choices and sort of get a sense of forward motion. So I am feeling full and complete about how we've handled that, but let's do a last closing circle and just go around and basically sort of thoughts, reactions, takeaways from what we've just done together. Over to you, April. You're muted.
Muted, but not mute. I'm pleased with what's emerged from this. And I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in and paddling around in the guilds, although I may not swim in any one guild forever. But that's appealing at the moment. Over to Heather, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've done really, really good work. It's coming together like in a way that I didn't expect. So I think that that's good. And yeah, looking forward to really using my time effectively, I think is where I'm at right now. Over to Barbara.
I just want to acknowledge the work of the facilitation team on bringing the framework for this session and all the other sessions together very nicely, like nicely as in flow, in terms of flow. Thank you. And I have noticed, I've felt, and I am noticing that my awareness and my comprehension has magnified, expanded. And I feel gratitude for that as well. And I might just be at every one of those guild meetings tomorrow. And I hope there's enough time. I was kind of looking forward to having like that big chunk for one guild to like do shit. However, 45 minutes, like it kind of, that's a driver for efficiency. And I think I'll be okay with that. But I just want to take that. And I'm passing to Ronnie.
Yeah, I think that went really well. And I am also really tired and I have hit my capacity for Zoom and talking for the day. So I'm just naming that. But I think it was a very full and productive day and really, really awesome. So over to Roland.
Thanks, everyone. It's a great example of strengths coming together. Over to Linda.
I'm relieved that we have the opportunity to meet in the various guilds. I think that will be very, very helpful, certainly to me, because I haven't been a part of this for very long. So I look forward to that level of work. I guess through that work, the whole will start to emerge for people who have just joined. I'm assuming it will, because it hasn't quite yet for me, but I'm assuming it will. Let's see, has Kia, oh no, Kia, you are still with us. Over to you.
I'm still with you. I just want to say it's such a refreshing and novel experience to sit in and be an observer in an organization I'm not running. And I just love that. It's so and it's really gifted me with just some perspectives because I'm at a shift point in the group that I work with too of, we're moving to a next level of something having, accomplished our first plan. And now the next plan has to emerge. So, I just want to acknowledge that I feel really richly benefited by just being an observer in this. And I have a very full day tomorrow, but I have a question, which is the guild. I'm interested in finance at this point, and who comes into a finance guild, and who are those people who are willing to do this work? So if there's a time that I can pop into that one, I would love it.
Well, yeah, well, it'll be, if we stick with the 15 minutes, then it would be at 11:15 Pacific will be finance. Is that right? No, it'll be 11 o'clock will be finance.
Okay. Or
In
noon,
theory,
big
yeah.
time. Ugh,
Yeah.
okay.
You know,
And,
and
oh, go ahead.
I noticed it occurred to me that if we're having these short meetings and I want to sit in on more than one, I would expect myself not to speak, but just to observe. But the people who are going to carry the work forward and, need to make the decisions on that. Otherwise, I think it'll be really muddy.
Well, and I think I want to make sure that we have reasonable expectations for, what we're going to get done tomorrow. And I will open it up to, so this is one of those perennial facilitation challenges, is we originally had more of the morning available for the guilds to meet and had scheduled a half an hour for each guild. But then we also wanted to have a circle like we do our morning circle here, where we really focus in on agreements and what you need to show up. And so we carved time away from the guilds to make time for the circles. And, this is the balancing buckets. Where do we want to put our energy? It's an open question. So, we can schedule the time if we want to, put more effort towards the guild meetings, then we can do that. But here's my, just Ronnie noted I'm in the same boat, my Zoom capacity is limited. We've done a lot of really good work. I'm not sure that I can sit through and be really super productive and focused for getting into some of these questions tomorrow. And what I was imagining is really it's an opportunity for the guild to say, all right, what's a good time for us to meet? And what's on the agenda for meeting? And so the three things that we were hoping for is what are you going to put on as your agenda items for conversation at the next meeting? When are you going to have it? Who is interested and who is willing to be the caretaker? And caretaker is
Yeah.
the word we use for, again, with around language. It's basically a point person. It's not the person who does all the work. We want to get away from that idea. It's not the chair. It's not the, it's not the admin or anything like that. It's the person who is willing to make sure the meetings happen and to be a liaison where there's information that needs to get shared. But anyhow, those were sort of the 3 or 4 things that we were thinking. It's really scheduling that meeting. What are we going to talk about, and who's going to be involved, and then let that work. Let the actual meeting of the guilds happen over the next week or two, so we have more time and space for those conversations. That's currently the plan, and we're open to flexibility, or we are flexible. We're open to changes if that feels right, but that was our thinking. Cool. And that's the other thing too, is I think in all of this, part of the relational aspect of it, part of the iterative nature of it is people will come and go, people will step forward, people will step back, people will have things come up and, have every expectation of being more involved and then not. And so how do we make the space for that where we're not just kind of cast adrift when people can't be there, but it still feels fair, and with that balance of if you're not there, what's your responsibility in catching up, and what's the responsibility of the group in making that information available. So those are those conversations to have. Anyhow, I feel like I think we're in a good place for set for the guild conversations tomorrow. And we had scheduled a little bit of arts and crafts time, but I think when I looked, I don't think we had any submissions. So, oops, can't do that. Yeah, we haven't had any submissions in our arts and craft time. And I am going to suggest that we skip the arts and craft time and we all just go home early. We take a little bit of a break and then be back. So tomorrow morning, are there any, using sociocracy, are there any objections, or can we live with it? Any objections?
I might have a brainwave for a badge overnight. Can we have a short show and tell tomorrow if that should happen?
Yeah. If there are any submissions, so on the Miro board, there's a place where the idea is it's an opportunity to be a bit creative around what badges might look like, just playfully. And so it can be in any form as long as you can upload it digitally. So like take a picture of it with your phone. And if there are any submissions there, whenever we have them, we'll take a moment to take a look at them, and everyone's encouraged. Barbara?
I have a sense that there's a different agenda for tomorrow than what was previously shared in terms of like what, time and things that are happening at that time. Is it possible to circulate an update for that?
Sure.
For those
Yeah. And the
rest of us?
only change is that we put in a morning circle at 9, and we've moved the guild meeting part to 10:30. So that's the change, and it's on the website. Now I'll double check and make sure, and we can send out an
Okay.
email. That's easily done.
Yeah, there may be people who aren't here that are planning to come tomorrow with certain expectations.
Cool. Good point.
Yeah, I wasn't clear. So 9 o'clock, everyone needs to be here for the opening circle work, correct? And then
It's still optional. So the circle, basically we have a daily morning circle, which is kind of part of the culture of the farm, that involves a quick meditation and a guided visualization, a guided imagery. And then we discuss our agreements. What do we need to be present and show up, and how do we want to be with each other? And we find it to be a very rich experience. And so we just wanted to make it available. Even though we do it in person, we're going to do it as an online. So it's totally optional, but it's an experience of what it's like to be on the farm and the way we work. And so we thought that was more important, to give people that kind of experiential opportunity than to just be business.
Yeah. And so then the guild meetings will be after that, and
Yeah.
they'll just follow one another. And so if we,
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I got
Cool. And yeah, and I'll detail that in an email and just send that out. All right. Do we want to just do a quick opportunity to say your goodbyes once around, or do we want to just wave and fade into the sunset? Wave and fade into the sunset. All right. We'll see everyone tomorrow at 9, or whenever
Thank
you
you.
show up. Bye.
Bye.